looks like we are at 6 o'clock. The number of you I can see keeps growing by the second. We have a huge number of you here tonight to watch our seminar on the unique heating and cooling requirements of Chicago bungalows. I'm Carla Bruni. I'm the Preservation and Resiliency Specialist at the Chicago Bungalow Association. I've seen many of you over the years through these seminars. And we're here tonight with Marek, Mroz, and Jessica Self with American Vintage Home. I'll introduce you guys in a few minutes. I just had a little bit of housekeeping to do with folks to let them know about some things that are going on. We've gotten a lot of inquiries about the emergency heating program. The city had put that on hold for a while. So those of you who are really in need around that, the good news, it's actually coming back on November 15th. We've been sort of watching that for a while. I will put the link in the Q&A section here. Actually, I'm not sure that I can. So I'm going to reply to Karen Jacobson's. Yes, Karen, we will. Karen Jacobson just wrote in if we'll be sending a recording after the seminar. We will, and because I can't initiate a question in here, I'm going to put the link for the emergency heating program in here. Let's see if that worked under answered. See if you guys can see that. Otherwise, we'll send you guys the link for sure with the follow-up and the recording of tonight's seminar. Because we had 500 people sign up for this tonight, we're going to make sure everybody is automatically muted on entry, just because there's too much noise otherwise, of course. And in terms of questions, we're going to wait until the end for the same reason on that. And we're going to have about an hour or so of the actual seminar, and then we'll go to as late as 6:30 with questions, and we'll try to get through as many of them as we can for you guys. I'll be helping sort through those. If you do have questions, please, the chat has been disabled for this seminar, but the Q&A is open. We like to use the Q&A for that. That way we can respond to you. It's easier to track, easier to keep everything in order. Let's see, I think that's about it for housekeeping. Just to note that we are recording this. So as I said, we'll send that out to you, but just be aware that we are recording it. And now I just want to introduce our fantastic speakers from American Vintage Home. Marek Mroz is the Vice President. He's worked in the HVAC industry for over 30 years and has a true engineering mind. He approaches every home as a unique set, with a unique set of needs, and truly searches for the right solution for each customer. This ethos informs the process of all engineers at ABH. And Jessica Self is an engineering consultant at American Vintage Home. Jessica's worked in remodeling and construction since 2008 and has a background in interior design. She began working for American Vintage Home in the fall of 2019 and trained with Marek to sharpen her HVAC skills. She approaches each problem with an eye on form and function and has a soft spot for Chicago bungalows, which is fabulous. So I think without further ado, I know you guys are going to share your screen for tonight, but I'll let you guys get started, and I'll go ahead and mute and hide myself. But if you need anything, feel free to let me know. I'll be right here.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you so much. We're so thrilled to be here and really, really appreciate the great turnout and high level of interest. That's so exciting for us. I'm gonna get our screen sharing set up here. Rebecca, you may have to help me. There we go.
Just click that one.
This
Share.
one?
Yep.
And we have our IT specialist here on site with us. We all have very, very specialized knowledge, and IT is not mine or Marek's actually. So we received this request from the Chicago Bungalow Association and got so excited because bungalows really are just incredibly special and unique, as you all know. You all must love them as well. And we just really got into some really fun conversations about what makes them that way and what it is about the bungalow that creates this kind of interest and this kind of loyalty and love, and really is just this unique Chicago home that lends itself to so many iterations. And you know, in the course of those conversations, we really, really are getting into the nitty-gritty of some of the HVAC questions that I think you all have. So without further ado, we're going to go on and get started. Mark, do you want to kind of say a few words?
Shouldn't.
All right.
Let's
All
start.
right.
Let's start. We'll get into details.
Okay, so, Rebecca, we're stuck. Oh, thank you. So one of the things that came up immediately, and thank you so much for allowing us to steal some of the images from your website, actually, on how best to modify these homes. The bungalow is so versatile, and one of the things that creates some challenges for heating and cooling is that they often are changed. They're tacked onto, they're renovated multiple times over their lives. People the homes grow with the family that lives in them, and so we see a lot of special heating and cooling needs that maybe weren't part of the original design.
Yes.
So we're going to really tackle some of that today.
What we love about the bungalows is the fact that they're almost exclusively are heated with the hot water or steam. So, the radiators are present throughout the house. There's a boiler in the basement, and that's our specialty. So we know how to adjust things, how to make them better, and how to make everything more efficient and comfortable.
Yeah, there are definitely, as you guys all know, some commonalities in the world of Chicago bungalows. So we're going to really kind of address some of those today. As Mark mentioned, many, a great proportion of the bungalows have hydronic heat. And all that means is that they are heated with water and or steam. So that means a boiler in the basement, radiators throughout, sometimes in more modern setups, a radiant floor. So you can see images of that on your screen, and we're going to kind of talk through the different options that are available with this type of heat.
Yes, most commonly you'll see radiators throughout the house, and they're big cast iron radiators that you see on the left, and sometimes they have all kinds of profiles. In your homes you probably have some of them even in capsules in radiator covers, which protect the radiators, protect the occupants, surfaces. So sometimes they look nice too, and sometimes they don't. The radiators, in our opinion, and I think opinion of other experts, are the best way of heating homes. They don't install them nowadays because nowadays forced air took over and you can heat and cool at the same time. But if you ask experts and if you ask people that know about the comfort, the radiators are unsurpassed in this regard. They're sitting there, there's no air movement, they gently heat the space, and they're quiet, except if there's steam. Some of you may experience steam systems. Steam systems can be noisy. They can clank, they can create some noises, and they're not as comfortable as hot water systems. And we'll talk about those steam systems a little bit later. As far as hot water systems, you can heat with radiators, as shown here. You can heat with other kinds of heat emitting hot water devices like cast iron baseboards. Mm-hmm. This is the example of cast iron baseboard. The upper picture shows copper fin baseboard enclosed in the metal. The other two pictures show towel warmer, which is frequently installed in the bathroom or in the area that other common heating element. It's a heated wall panel, and they come in all kinds of shapes and variations. Basically they're based on BTU of heat necessary to heat the room. Very frequently the question is being asked, can I remove the radiator and can I put the baseboard in, right? Mm-hmm. And the short answer is yes, but it has to be done properly. What are the problems that can occur?
So without getting too into the weeds on how radiators work, what you're looking at when you look at one of these old vintage style radiators is a lot of surface area. And so when we're thinking about how to measure the heat that a space needs, we're thinking of that surface area for that radiation to enter the room. And so we really want that same surface area. If you're comfortable, if it's warm enough for you, we want to meet that heating need with whatever goes in there. So people want to remove these big old radiators because, hey, they're in the way. They have a big footprint. They're trying to renovate. They're, all kinds of cosmetic reasons for that. And that's fine. And there are a lot of space-saving solutions. We just have to make sure that they are sized properly for the needs of the room. And sometimes we find that the older radiators are a little oversized. So you can sometimes go down just a little bit in terms of your heating needs.
Yes.
One of the things I was going to interject, Mark, was that with these, in general terms, we call these European style radiators, the wall panels, excuse me, and the towel warmers. They're just really nice if you're thinking about renovating and you want something a little bit more modern. And I've seen people use the towel warmer radiators in their mudrooms to dry their coats, their gloves, their shoes. So that's a really nice space-saving, cozy, comfy solution you can put on warm gloves in the winter and walk out.
Hang coat there. Yes.
Yeah, it's really, really nice in Chicago winter. So yeah, the main thing is just making sure that whoever does the installation for you, if you replace a radiator, is sizing everything appropriately.
Yes. There's really, radiators are indestructible. If someone tells you that, this radiator is not heating because there's something wrong with it, very unlikely scenario, very unlikely. There could be valve, there could be situation with the air being locked within, pipe passage or something, but the radiators, in my history of working with American Vintage Home, I don't remember a radiator being not able to heat because something went wrong within the radiator. It's generally the pumping arrangement, generally the piping, something else, not the radiator. So that's my take on the radiators.
Unless you can visibly see a crack in that
yes,
radiator,
yes.
it's probably not the radiator.
Right.
And
if it's leaking, yes, you have to replace it.
One thing to note that we didn't talk about earlier, but I think we should, is that if you want to remove a radiator because you're getting too hot in that space, you
That's
can
a good point. Yes.
thermostatically control that radiator without going through the whole process of a removal.
Yes.
So if you don't mind it, it's not a cosmetic thing. You're going, it's in my bedroom and I'm dying. Call us out, call somebody that's qualified out, get a thermostatic valve put on, and then you don't just have on and off as an option. You can control the level of flow to that radiator and really dial in the temperature that's comfortable for you.
Yes. So the radiator that you see here on the left is equipped with a manual valve. But what thermostatic valve will do, it comes with the head that has a little thermostat in it and simply will allow for water to flow in and out in accordance with the setting. So if you set it, let's say, basically, generally they don't have temperature settings, but they have dialed from 0 to 9, and you find your sweet spot, you set it in, and this radiator will never overheat. These are strictly temperature limiting devices, but serve very well. And, so if you have overheating situation, it's ideal situation. It is an ideal solution for it.
You can't get more heat with a thermostatic valve,
No.
but you can always get less.
Right.
So,
right.
Let's talk a little bit about radiant floor while we're here.
Yes. Radiant floors. I mean, if you plan on redoing section of the house, the front of the house or porch, or maybe basement, or maybe even doing the renovating the top of the bungalow, and you want to put the heat in there, and you don't want any radiators or the baseboards on any sort of heating units that you see, the radiant heat is the proper answer. And the only thing is we need to have an access to that floor, either from underneath it or from the top of it, and then we can simply warm up the floor and give you the best source of heat available to mankind.
Yeah, and for your purposes in renovation, if you are demoing a floor because you're going to put in new flooring, or if you're demoing a ceiling and you want to heat the room above that ceiling, that's a great time to do that. And in terms of your materials, try to select either an engineered wood floor
Yes.
or tile floor. Those are your best media for transmitting this heat the way it's been designed to transmit. Also concrete in the basement.
In the basement, yes.
Mhm.
So if you're thinking about, let's say, remodeling basement area,
Mhm.
there are some difficulties, but generally the radiant heat would be the most pleasant source of heat in the basement. But there are also other ways of doing it. Yes.
It's so nice walking around on a radiant floor.
Right.
Your feet are warm. Your pets love it. Your kids love it. It's just a lovely source of heat, and it allows you to heat with a lower temperature of water,
Right.
which is phenomenal for your boiler's efficiency and your energy costs.
Yes. Yes. We'll talk about it a little bit later.
Yes.
But radiant heat is radiant floor heating. It's the best really source of heat available.
It really is. And what you see here is one iteration of radiant flooring installed. It can be installed in a multitude of ways. And they really are dependent on the surrounding structure and the condition that you have. So, definitely don't assume that this is the only way to do it, but essentially it's water piping that goes through the floor and warms you.
What hydronic also heat source allows us to do, it allows us to zone the system fairly easily. So it's quite simple. Let's say if you're finishing the porch and you want to add source of heat in there, it's possible to add radiator or baseboard on any source heat that you desire and control it independently. The same thing if you do something on the second floor or you do something in the basement. Hydronic systems lend themselves very easily to be zoned, so you can manage different temperatures in different areas of your house.
If I'd had that when I was growing up, I would have had so many fights with my parents over how cold it was in my house. My dad wanted it Arctic, but
I think we can go to the next one. Yes.
Okay. Something we want to talk about as a side note, if you have a steam boiler system, consider converting it to hot water. And Mark can talk a little bit about which systems are really good.
If you have just radiators on the main floor, even if, there are two types of steam systems. They call them single pipe steam system or two pipe steam system. If you have two pipe steam system, it's very easy to convert it. There's generally conversion with new boiler costs almost identical to the cost of new boiler or new steam boiler. Mm-hmm. So that's really a wash there. If you have single pipe steam system, it's a little bit more tricky, but still doable. That requires a little bit more of engineering and insight, but it's still doable. Why even consider conversion to steam? I mean, why would you even consider?
So let's say you have a steam system and you're living with that steam system, and I'll tell you what your experience is like. One, it's really noisy. Two, those steam radiators are incredibly hot to the touch. So if you have kids, you're super nervous around it. Three, you get swings in temperature. It's super hot or it gets chilly, and then it gets super hot and it gets chilly. And, you're spending a ton of money on heating your house. Presumably, if you have a steam system, you're overheating your house. Steam systems, a lot of times, were designed to overheat homes so that windows could be opened during the Spanish flu, which is a fun fact about hydronics for you. So it's really an antiquated, outdated technology for heating homes. They're being phased out. Nobody's building new construction homes and putting a steam boiler in. So if you have the opportunity to convert, really consider converting. You said HUD did a study on the savings on energy costs. What was it?
And they're ranging anywhere from 35 to 50%. So this is very substantial. So if you're paying, let's say $2,000 a year to heat your home, if you put the high efficiency boiler and then convert it to hot water, your savings will be in the $1,000 range.
So I want to repeat something that Mark said earlier because I don't want to gloss over it. Let's say your steam boiler goes down. It's time to replace it. The cost of replacing a steam boiler like for like is going to be equivalent to the cost of a new hot water boiler plus conversion. So you can convert and go hot water with that equipment for the same cost as just buying a steam boiler to replace the one you've got. So typically they're right in that same price point. So it's really, there's no loss associated with doing this. It's a really good idea.
So besides the savings, monetary, definitely increase comfort. Because like Jessica said, steam boiler, it has to be either fully on or nothing. It has to boil the water in order to create the steam. So your radiators, if the temperature outdoor is 50 degrees, they will be 212 degrees hot. If it's minus 10 outside, they still will be 215 hot. So it really, that's the only way the steam can travel, But with the hot water, especially with new boilers, they have computers, they have outdoor sensors, they have sensors on the incoming water, they have sensors on the water leaving the boiler, and they adjust the water in accordance to the outdoor temperature and your setting on your thermostat. So let's say if it's 50 degrees outside, you might just circulate 100-degree water through your system and be comfortable and happy. And only when the temperature, let's say, dips into minus, 10, let's say 10 degrees minus, that water temperature will automatically be raised to maybe 140 to 160 degrees, and then provided with super comfort. So that's the savings and monetary and the comfort is really great. Not to mention safety.
Yeah,
especially with new boilers, safety is a big thing, because we all know about carbon monoxide poisoning, about the flames sometimes shooting out of the boiler. So if you want to touch on the safety of the hot water, hot water boilers.
Yeah, so some of the newer high efficiency boilers that have just come to market have a fully enclosed cabinet around them. And all that means is that one, they're very, very quiet. You're not hearing the noise of the boiler. And two, that the carbon monoxide risk is substantially lowered. All the combustion is completely enclosed and sealed. And the intake air and the exhaust air are all outside the house. So it's the safest boiler on market that you can put in, especially in finished spaces. If you have a finished basement bedroom or somebody that comes to stay fairly often and they're sleeping near that boiler, they're going to be able to have total quiet down there, and they're going to be a lot safer with that equipment.
That's true. Yes.
Yeah. So that is our sermon on steam boiler conversion, because we could not be more in favor. If people who do it, they're so happy with it.
Yes.
So happy with it. All right, let's talk about forced air. Now that we have praised hydronics for a while, some homes and some owners either buy the house with forced air already installed or are interested in adding forced air for a myriad of reasons. It is one of the more economical ways to get both heating and cooling, so that can't be underestimated in terms of importance. So what we've shown here are two ways to get heat with forced air in a retrofit situation. The first one is something that not a lot of people know about. People have heard of Space Pack and Unico and these high velocity air systems. Not a lot of people are aware that you can add a hydronic coil to a Space Pack or Unico system and heat that way. Basically, you're sticking a radiator onto that blower, and it is distributing that warm air throughout the ducted system.
And you can connect it to your existing boiler.
Exactly. So if you have a boiler and or you're thinking about adding Space Pack or Unico, you can also get forced air heat with that device as well. There's also the conventional forced air with ducting, like we see in a lot of new construction homes. It's a pretty invasive process. It's not our first reach whenever somebody says, hey, I want to add forced air heat. We typically try to find a different way, but for some applications it makes sense. If you have a fully open upper floor or fully open basement and you're not planning to renovate those areas anytime soon, and you just want to get heat to one floor, whatever is directly above or below it, then that's not a bad option.
It's not a bad option. However, it goes a little bit against the grain what the bungalows all are about, right? Because they were heated with the radiators. So if we were to preserve the character and the spirit of bungalow, this is not the route that we definitely would like to take. No, we're a little, we're partial against this particular solution here for Chicago Bungalow.
Yeah. We'll talk about zone sort of a condition. You definitely want a zone because in bungalows in particular, the different floors have very different needs, just because of the nature of the structure.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Can go forward.
Oh, that's an interesting topic.
All right, let's talk about cooling. So again, going back to our high velocity system, Space Unico, you can see a nice little diagram of how those systems tend to be installed. They can be installed in a basement or an attic, sometimes a closet if we're dealing with a single floor. Although if you have a basement or attic available, it's preferable, just because it minimizes the construction. Mark, you want to speak to that? Mark is our original Space Pack installer here.
Yes, and it's probably the least invasive system that we can provide, with which we can provide central cooling to the home. You call it surgery on the house. So we basically insert small flexible ducts into all the rooms with the outlets, varying from 1 all the way to maybe 4 or even 5 outlets per room. Those are small circular outlets that you see in the corner there. We can cool entire home perfectly with the system. We have a ways of getting to all the rooms, be it single floor or 2 floor, or even if we need to drop something to the basement. Our technicians, they have carpentry skills. They're really, really good at, hiding all the ductwork and leaving the most space available for, let's say, if you want to finish the upper floor, above the main floor in the Chicago Bungalow. SpacePack, it seems to complement the hydronic design of the bungalow. So if one was to put air conditioning or cooling in a bungalow, that, in my opinion, is the most elegant way of doing it. However, in recent years, we have new development, and that's called ductless split system. That maybe Jessica will explain a little bit how that part works.
I love this product because it's super, super eco-friendly. Your electricity usage with this is super low. You're going to be very comfortable, and it by nature is a multi-zone system if you put in more than one blower. And what that means in our geographic area in particular is that not only can you get cooling with this system, but you can get some shoulder season heating as well. So that's a really nice, really efficient sort of boost if you don't want to switch on your boiler, every day when it's 50 or 60 degrees outside, you're just a little chilly, you can get a little heat with these systems too. I love a ductless system for a lot of reasons, but one of them is that it just requires very, very minimal construction. We often think about ductless systems for customers when they want to heat one particular, cool or heat one particular area separate from the main house, but they do have the capacity to do entire homes. So don't limit yourself to just doing one area. If you're interested in reducing your carbon footprint, if you don't want to rely on fossil fuels as much, this is a really, really good way to get there with cooling and some heating as well.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say in terms of cost, comparable to SpacePack when you get into a multiple zone scenario. But if you just have an open attic space or an open basement space and you're trying to cool that area or heat that area, you can usually do it with a single zone and really reduce your costs.
Yes.
It's a really nice solution.
And you can also mix both systems. Because what we find through our experience that especially Chicago bungalows, when you fix 2 rooms up, when there is an attic now, and so you develop this area and then you put the bathroom in there, this top floor always heats and cools differently from the main house. So if we can have our choice of systems, we would probably put the SpacePack on the main floor and maybe drop a couple outlets to the finished basement area. And then we would put the split system in the attic because, maybe you don't even need to cool the first floor when you go to sleep, and you can turn this blower, this mini split on just for master bedroom or just for the other bedroom that you have finished there, and be comfortable and, energy conscious, and it's the best of the worlds.
Oh, and they're so quiet, you can't even tell they're on. Sometimes we test them and we're like, are we sure these are on?
Right.
They're really, really
Yes,
quiet.
yes.
It's
We have
amazing.
one right here in the office, and we sometimes we'll turn it on for the prospective buyers, and we don't even know whether it's on or not. Is it like residual noise from somewhere else? It's really
Super quiet.
amazing. Yes.
Yeah, just great technology, really something. So you can see in the slide that the way that it's laid out with the ductless system is that there are a couple of different areas that are being cooled, and they can be cooled at their own temperatures. So you have completely independently zoned areas with these blowers, which is just really nice. Should we move on?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Wow.
All right, we're all sort of in the parched desert. We're getting into that land right now as our radiators all come on. But we want to talk a little bit about humidity control, both humidification and dehumidification. So if you've ever lived with conventional forced air, you know that your humidifier on that system will have like a summer setting and a winter setting. It's because in winter we get super dry and we want to add humidity, and in summer it gets super humid and we want to reduce our humidity. Humidity in the air makes you feel warmer. So you can take high humidity and feel kind of hot, and you can lower that humidity and very, very comfortable. Same temperature, but it feels totally different. So that has implications for how we heat and cool spaces. Humidity has implications for our comfort in other ways. We all have sinus problems when it gets too dry. But when you think about humidification and dehumidification, particularly in regard to cooling, if you can dehumidify, you can cool less and be comfortable, which is really nice for your efficiency.
In our area overall, when we come into air season, we're not fighting the temperature, we're fighting humidity as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when we design the systems, the frequently asked question is, when can I go with the bigger system? Let's say, for Bungalow, we need 3.5 tons general. And that will allow us for the temperature drop of 20 degrees. And that's the engineering norm for Chicago area, that well-designed cooling system should maintain 20-degree differential between what's outside and what's inside. So let's say 95 outside, 75 indoors. Well, people will ask, well, what happens if it's 110 outside? Well, we can guarantee only 20-degree differential. But why is it? Why don't we go with days between 80 and 90? They're not between 90 and 100. So we size the system to drop the temperature, but also by doing so, remove humidity. So what happens if we size the system for 30-degree differential? So instead of Bungalow needing 3.5, we put 5-ton system in there. Well, if it's a single speed system, most of the days will drop temperature within a few minutes, but will not be able to remove any humidity. So we'll end up with the house that's cool yet clammy, like a after rainy day. So that's not our aim. Then we'll have to worry about dehumidification in some other way. Nowadays, with variable speed compressor or 2-stage compressors, that problem, it's a little bit easier to solve. So we could oversize the system as long as we put the right equipment in, and then we can solve the dehumidification issue in the house. Okay.
When you have different speeds available with your compressor, you can run at a lower speed, and as long as you're cooling, you're dehumidifying. So if you run at that lower speed and just keep the fan on and run at the lowest cooling setting, you're constantly dehumidifying your house, and you're going to feel so much better at an even higher temperature than maybe you think you like. Yes. So it's really nice.
And mini split ductless systems, they excel in dehumidification because they have variable speed compressors. They adjust the flow and flow rate of their refrigerant, so cooling to the demand, and they're perfect as far as dehumidification goes. Yes.
So let's talk about adding humidity.
Oh, why would you want to add humidity?
Well, you never do because you're always hot, but I'm always freezing. And, you know, in my household in particular, we have radiators, and we are constantly trying to get more moisture into the air so that we're not waking up with stuffy heads and headaches and things like that. So, you know, there are a few ways, particularly if you have a typical bungalow and you have a hydronic system, there are a few ways that you can get some into the air. The first one is a whole house humidifier. And there are a couple different models that we tend to work with. There are tons of models out there on the market. You know, they're not as inexpensive as, you know, going to Target and buying a 5-gallon humidifier.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
They are an appliance that you're putting in your house, but they're pumped, they're piped so that they get water from your cold water system or hot water system, depending on the appliance. And you don't have to constantly refill them. They handle it. You set the setting. They give you the humidity that you want all winter long, and you're a lot more comfortable. So,
and generally speaking, just so you have an idea how much water can be absorbed in the midst of the winter through the air in the bungalow, it's calculated that you need, for typical bungalow, you need about 12 gallons of water per day. So putting those little units, you know, you will have to refill them twice a day to get enough moisture in the air. And the moisture of the air should be somewhere around 50% of the relative humidity. So it's a job and a half if you want to do it.
Yeah, you just hauling buckets of water
Right.
all day, and they get gross, and they're just not easy to maintain.
There is one more way of humidifying of homes with the bungalow, with the radiators.
Pots of water.
Yes, sometimes and I don't know, many of you may have radiators that have covers. If you flip the top cover off, you will find the metal pan sitting on the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
That pan was designed to hold the body of water. So you can pour the water in it as long as it's not leaking, obviously. And that water will evaporate over the period of a day or two, and you refill it. And this is the purpose of those galvanized pans sitting on the top of the radiators.
And from an aesthetic standpoint, the beautiful European radiators, they have accessories that you can buy.
That's true.
That
Yes.
are beautiful ceramic water holders, that are humidifiers that hang on the radiators, and that they're all stylized and pretty, and the sky's the limit. I mean, you
Yes.
can go crazy with
Yes.
those.
Yes.
So if you want to go low tech, put your pot that you don't care about on top of your radiator, or use the pans. We also like damp laundry sometimes. It really helps.
I think we're going in the wrong direction here.
All right. So you can also humidify through your forced air system, even if you have a high velocity system like a Space Pack or a Unico. The main thing there is to make sure that you have the appropriate trunk on that system.
Right.
We don't want to take an old fiberglass trunk, which is if you think of it like a centipede, the main body of the centipede. You don't want that to be an old fiberglass system. You really the new metal gasketed trunk if you're going to try to humidify through that system. But there are whole house humidifiers, steam humidifiers that can be connected, and they can distribute humidity for
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's talk about efficiency. Everybody needs to insulate everything they can possibly insulate is the moral of this story. Insulate, insulate, insulate. If you can put insulation somewhere, put it there.
If you can replace the windows,
Replace them.
the windows. If you can seal your leaky doors, seal your leaky doors.
Mhm.
The best heating or cooling equipment, it's not going to compensate for leaky doors, windows, or lack of insulation.
Mhm.
That's the basics.
Without insulation, your house is basically naked in a Chicago winter.
Yes.
Imagine just going outside with no coat or clothes on. Like, that's what it is. So you need to put a coat on your house, insulate it as much as you can in any areas that are accessible. And it's going to really, really bring down not only the cost of your energy usage, but the size of the equipment that you need is substantially reduced when your house is insulated versus uninsulated. We run
Yes.
this calculation all the time. It can be cut by 25%.
More.
30, 40?
Because if you take the 1 square foot of uninsulated wall, that wall is losing 24 BTUs per square foot of uninsulated wall. If you insulate this wall with at least 3 inches of insulation, you cut it down to 6 BTUs. So that should give you the
75%, not 25%.
Yes.
I did the calculation the opposite way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So 75% reduction
Right.
in your.
So anything you can do to create tighter envelope around your house, the bungalows will leak no matter what. Okay, they're designed in such a way so you don't have to worry about too tight over the home. But if you can make it a little bit tighter, with better insulation, attic insulation, it's probably the easiest to install. Sometimes walls, unless you do remodeling, it's almost impossible to insulate the side walls. Exterior walls.
Yeah, but if you're remodeling a section of your home, for sure, make sure that you're properly insulating everything. It's really going to help. Another way to increase your efficiency is to upgrade your equipment's efficiency rating. Like one of the questions that I get when we are dealing with boiler sales. Okay, so I'm talking with a customer and we're looking at boiler options. There are really 2 categories of boiler 80% efficient. And all that number means is that if you look at your gas bill, for every $100 you're spending every month on your gas, 20 of that is just waste. So 20% of whatever your highest gas bill is, if you have an 80% efficient boiler, 20% of that just was out the window.
Same goes for the water heater.
Same for water heaters,
Yes.
tank type water heaters
Yes.
with aluminum venting. That's the telltale sign is that aluminum venting. Those are 80% efficient appliances. When you see something with PVC, that is a 95% efficient appliance. So all that means is that instead of $20 out of every 100 going out the window, you're losing 5, which is a much better number.
Much better. 75%.
75% better. So, that's really nice. Your energy costs go down with higher efficiency equipment right off the bat. You can run that calculation. You get utility rebates as long as your equipment is 95%
Yes,
or
yes.
higher for heating. And then in high efficiency equipment, you can buy combination appliances. And all that means is that your boiler and your domestic hot water are handled in one piece of equipment. And that is just an incredible deal. I feel like I'm on the Home Shopping Network right now. It's an incredible bargain. But I sell it all the time because you can spend $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 on a high efficiency boiler, depending on the capacity.
Yes.
Or you can spend basically that same amount after rebate to add the domestic hot water. And it's a no-brainer. And then you're getting that savings on efficiency and fuel usage on both appliances,
Right.
which is really nice.
So basically the combination appliance that you're talking about can take care of the space heating, like your normal boiler would. And then it has a built-in kind of like a tankless water heater.
Yeah.
So tankless water heaters are very popular. More and more people are getting them. So you get, high efficiency boiler and tankless water heater in one, right?
Yeah, and if you think about benefits of tankless, basically you just could shower all day and never run out of hot water. You're getting that same benefit from a combination boiler water heater.
Yes.
You can generally run 2 showers at one time with the flow rate of those heaters.
Yes. Not to mention that tank type water heaters, you will replace them, like clockwork every 10 years or so. The boiler, it has lifetime warranty. So you may never, at some point you will replace it, let's face it. But, the lifetime it's there's a huge payback right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't realize how tiny these high efficiency boilers are, and the combination ones are the same. If you think about the room that your boiler currently sits in with your tank type water heater and how much space it takes up in your basement, especially if you're considering a basement remodel and you really want to save space, these high efficiency combination boilers and water heaters are literally like 2 feet wide, 3 feet tall, and like 1.5 feet deep. That's it. It's a box and it sits up off the floor. You don't have to worry about water. You don't have to worry about things like that. It's on, hangers or struts, and it's just out of the way. And then you get all that space back, which is really nice.
Yes. And then before we mentioned the safety. Again, this appliance takes its air directly from the outside and also dispels the air back into the outside without mixing it with any indoor air. There's no opportunity for the carbon monoxide, if created, to enter your living space. It's a sealed combustion. Whatever comes in goes out. The bad stuff never has a chance to enter the house.
And we were talking with Mark earlier, and he was saying that the larger size that's available in these combination boilers and water heaters, which is like 199,000 BTUs, is generally the perfect capacity for a bungalow.
Yes.
A Chicago bungalow.
Yes.
So something to keep in mind if you're thinking about changing out your equipment anytime soon. We talked a little earlier about zoning.
Yes.
Zoning for efficiency's sake, so that you can target your energy usage in various areas of the home. And mainly people do it for comfort because they want different temperatures in different rooms. But it's also nice if you're not going to be in the basement that often. You don't have to keep it at 72. It could be at a lower temperature in the winter.
And the bedrooms, you generally like to have them cooler at night when you go to sleep. Well, not you, but most of normal people.
Yes. Yes. The other way to think about efficiency goes back to what we were saying earlier about ductless mini split systems with their incredibly small carbon footprint. You can consider a hybrid approach to heating your home with an electric mini split and a natural gas boiler. So if you are, again, putting an attic addition on or something like that, and you just want to heat that one area during shoulder seasons, you can really, really take down your fossil fuel usage, which is very nice. And then, of course, our favorite, heat hydronically whenever possible.
Yes.
It's the best. It's just the best.
I think the next slide is about the attic and the basement and
Oh,
all the
yeah.
free space.
Let's see. Oh, we have a note here. Just a heads up, when we're talking
Yes.
about insulation, you don't have to go crazy with like spray foam or whatever. You could, like 3 inches of batt insulation that you could just go to Home Depot and buy and put in yourself. It's going to do a world of good.
Yes.
So don't think
Huge
that you have
difference,
to go nuts.
yes.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about these challenging areas. So I spent some time on the Chicago Bungalow Association website and looked into all of the sort of prescribed ways of modifying bungalows. And it's really, gosh, you guys have done such a good job of putting all of that out there. So I stole your enclosed porch photo for our presentation. And, when we're thinking about bungalows as a whole, and we're thinking about the types of renovations that people do, when we're thinking about something like an addition or an enclosed porch or an attic, we really want to consider those areas independently from the existing heating system or cooling system.
Yes.
Think about targeting those independently, just because they usually carry they have so much need for heating and cooling that they can't easily be tacked on to the system that is already there. Basements, though, can generally be taken care of with modifications to your existing system, minor modifications. So you don't have to like crazily upsize your boiler to take care of your basement because it is already underground and insulated. Even though it feels cold sometimes, it really is easier to heat and cool than the other areas of the house.
The nice thing about the basements, if you think about, let's say, if you think about the remodeling of your basement, creating a space there, and you have all those long, low-hanging pipes in there, heating pipes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they generate the heat, so they're the source of heat for those basements, but you can get rid of them. In repiping is not that expensive of a proposition if you plan on creating a nice space there. With the advent of the PEX tubing, which is polyethylene, slow diameter tubing, we very frequently eliminate the mains, huge mains that are in the basements, and turn radiator, all those pipes, and it creates ample space. Your headroom is where it should be. And it's fairly simple procedure,
Mhm.
fairly simple procedure.
Yeah, pretty much everything you're like bonking your head on when you walk down there, you can take out, including your plumbing pipe. By the way, we do have a plumbing department.
Right.
But yeah, we can take out the heating pipe, the plumbing pipe, and run everything and a little tucked up a little higher with smaller tubing,
Yes.
flexible tubing.
Many older Chicago bungalows used to have gravity hydronic systems, hence the large diameter pipes that you see in the basements, because they used to have boilers without any circulating pumps. So there was a pot of water that was boiling in the basement, and by gravity, everything gently was moving up to the radiators on the first floor. That's how it was in the past. That's why they had to have large diameter pipes in the basement. Now this all can be eliminated, and with the circulating water, and that's simply,
Mhm.
it can be done simply.
Not a huge line item for
No,
your basement
no.
renovation.
Let's talk about attics. What would you do with the attic
Okay, so
if you have your choice?
I've always wanted an attic room.
Okay.
But I would put a mini split in an attic in a heartbeat for cooling. I would try to get some hydronic heat up there if I could, because it's not going to be comfortable year round in our climate with just mini split heat. But I would use my mini splits in spring and fall for sure.
Yes.
And then just have maybe some baseboards running along that attic.
Especially if you plan on having one large area, that's a very smart thing to do.
Mhm.
Yes. But if you split it in a number of bedrooms and the bathroom in between, then perhaps the next best thing would be to run some heating baseboard throughout this entire area and put it on a separate zone with a separate thermostat, so you can control it independently. And then we'll have to worry about cooling only. But that can be done either with spaceback or the mini split cooling system as well. Yes.
If you're gonna go crazy, do some hydronic floor, some radiant floor heat up there.
That would be lovely. Yes.
But that's only if you're fully gutting everything and ready to do that. But it's important to note, like, everybody thinks about trying to get hydronic heat up to a top floor, and now with the advent of PEX, that got a lot easier for us to do. It doesn't mean nearly as much demo of your first floor. We can like snake all that up.
Yes,
and
through
do
the
what we
interior
need to.
walls. Yes.
Mhm.
Nothing needs to be exposed anymore.
Not an
Yes.
invasive process anymore.
It's a small surgery.
Okay, I think we're good on that. So let's talk about how to use our money wisely when we're making modifications to our home. So you heard us talk about insulation. Insulation is the number one way to do that.
And we don't do insulation.
We do not. We don't even subcontract it. We don't make money on this. We are telling you, insulate your house. It's so good for you. But I used to get questions from my design clients, and they were like, "What's the cheapest way to make this room look better?" And I'd be like, "Well, paint it." Insulation is like, for efficiency, what painting is for decorating. Just think of it that way. Insulate your house. Increase your efficiency. So higher efficiency equipment reduces energy, it reduces equipment costs, it reduces maintenance costs. Particularly if you are a steam homeowner, convert
Yes.
that to hot water, you are going to show up at our door and thank us, I promise. And then we've talked about our combination boiler and water heater. I love a BOGO sale as much as anybody. Consider doing that if it's time for you to replace those pieces of equipment
Yes.
in your home.
Even if you're thinking about one or another, think now, okay, well, there is a way of combining. There's only maybe one detriment to going with the combination is when the unit fails, you don't have hot water nor do you have heat.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen that often. I mean, it can happen like with everything else in life, but the technology, it's not something new. It's been in Europe for decades already. So it's proven, it's solid, it's really well tested.
Mm-hmm. All right. So thank you all so much for listening to us and giving us your ears and eyes. And we are ready for question and answer time, I think.
Hopefully it was worth your time.
Great. Thank you guys so much. That was amazing. So much information. And we do have some questions as well. Sorry, it's gotten dark in here. I'm always trying to get the light right in my, in my home. But let's start with these questions. Again, we have until about 7:30, so we'll get through as many of them as we can, and we'll just do them in the order that they came to us as well. So Dwayne asked if AVH installs radiators where there currently are not radiators and where there currently are baseboard heaters.
Yes, we do. The short question is yes, we do. Yes, yes, yes. There's certain consideration. Obviously, you lose a little of a space, you know. I would right away ask the question, why would you want to do this? You know, obviously, but yes, it's commonly done. Especially all the radiators, when freshly painted and sanded, they look beautiful. They're just like pieces of art.
Excellent. Okay, is it reasonable to convert forced air to hydronic?
If money was not a subject, of course.
Yes.
Reasonable is the key word,
Yes.
right? Sure, if you're building your forever home and it's your dream house and your comfort is all that matters and you're not trying to get that money back on resale, then by all means, please do it.
Yes. We in our history, we had a customer that we simply refused to change the hydronic system into the forced air. And we just refused it because we didn't think it was smart, okay? And 5 years later, we're putting radiators back into that house after someone put the forced air. So it's possible to do, yes. So that tags it, you know, that segues into the previous question, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Matthew wants to know if you can talk a little bit about the pros and cons of combination boilers, combi boilers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we just spent quite a bit of time talking about like the combination appliance boiler, domestic water heater. That's exactly what we mean is a combi boiler. So if you are familiar with the rebates in the city of Chicago, it's the best rebate you can get on that combination appliance. Pros and cons, I think the only con we can come up with is if it goes down, both are down.
The flow rate sometimes is the con of this water heater. It's the same as it is with the tankless water heater. If you have a huge whirlpool or jacuzzi, it will take time to fill this body of water, okay, with water. That's the only detriment. So the tank type water heater, you can have 100 gallons standing by to fill that tub. With the tankless, it will take 15 to 20 minutes to fill the tub, but with the tank type water heater, you won't be able to take the shower forever. With the tankless, you can turn it on and shower entire day if you want to. It will never run out of hot water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one solution that sometimes we put in is a storage tank. So if you want a combination boiler, you want the benefit of that tankless water heater, but you have, let's say, more than 3 bathrooms in your house, or you have a big tub, you might think about a storage tank in addition.
Yes, and that's a
Oops, you froze a little bit on my screen just now. Hoping you'll come back soon.
We can see you.
Uh-oh, okay. I think you're back. Sorry, it was just a little pause there. Okay, had you finished that question? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear if it wrapped up. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm not sure if this is necessarily your specialty, but you can probably speak to it somewhat. Our attic has standard fiberglass batting between the rafters, but the rafters still get very hot or cold. Would adding rigid foam on top of those cause mold or other issues?
As long as it's properly ventilated between the surface of the roof and the insulation, that should be no problem. However, it's a common thing to, yes, the surface of, that's why we always say that the bungalows are very particular in this design, that they always, the top floor in bungalow heats up so much quicker than anything else. I would say yes, adding another layer of insulation would dramatically help the situation. But with as far as the mold issues, I would talk to insulator, because you can add that layer, but it has to be done properly.
Right, right. Okay. Gas, hot water, boilers, and radiators. Is there a setback on the thermostat that would save energy, meaning at night or when at work? So can you program a radiator, basically?
So you can program your thermostat for sure. And people, you can go as crazy as you want to with the complication level of your thermostat these days. But some of the smart thermostats that people have this capability. Even the ones that aren't are programmable. So I would say yes. Can you do it to a single radiator unless that radiator is zoned?
Well, or if you have there are thermostatic valves that are also programmable.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So there are ways of, you can program individual radiator with the thermostatically operated radiator valves that has a programming ability in it. Yes. Yes, you can.
Interesting. Did not know that. And there's a difference too, right, between if you have a forced air thermostat versus a thermostat you're using for your radiators, for boilers, like the temperatures, I seem to remember can sort of read differently. So you have to make sure you have a proper thermostat as well. Is that correct?
You can use the same thermostat for either one of those systems. What they have is something that's called heat anticipator. It's a built-in sensing ability for the thermostat. So with the hot water, there's a little bit of lead and lag before you get the hot radiators, before you actually sense the heat dispersing through the environment. With the forced air, it's much quicker. You pump the hot air into the home. So the new electronic thermostats, they have built-in mechanisms, and all we have to do is just change the dip switches. The older Mercury, which is no longer in use, they had the setting that the good installer would simply set it to the proper heating equipment.
Okay, interesting. Okay, Jeffrey has a bungalow that has forced air on the second floor with ceiling vents that cool the first floor. This summer, the first and second floor remained cool, but the basement remained very warm. They have a living area in the basement and had trouble cooling that. Any suggestions on how to keep the basement cool?
Split system.
A split system. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it sounds like there aren't any supplies to that basement, that it's not actually part of the conditioned space with the existing system. So if you just want to target that basement area, assuming it is an open space, think about a mini split system.
Yes.
That would be
by
perfect.
all means, that would be a perfect addition. Yes.
Particularly for the humidity that sometimes happens in basements.
Yes.
Great. Okay. This one I know, excuse me, my cat joins us. I know you've touched on this, but just to reiterate, because we've had people coming in and out a lot, which is why I know some of these questions have come up, but it's nice to go over them again. Which system would be economically smart, hot water or forced air?
Hot water. Hot water.
Yes.
Hands down.
Yes.
There was some statistic when I first started my training here, Mark, and Mark had me read a bunch of very, very dense engineering documentation before I started my first day. I had no idea what I was reading. But the one thing that I understood when I came into the office, the first question I asked him as part of my training was, why does anybody have forced air? Why don't we all have hydronic systems? Like, I don't understand. It carries the heat, water carries the heat so much more efficiently than air. It's some crazy percentage difference. It's like thousands of times better. And it's just hands down the most economical way is with hydronics. Now, putting in a hydronic system, on the other hand, is not a small economic proposition. But if you already have one, by all means, keep it. For goodness sake, keep it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What happens with the hot water system in being in radiant heat or being in the radiator, it disperses the heat at the level that we're sitting by the floor, we're standing on the floor, we're within 6 feet of the floor. So that's where the heat disperses first from the radiators, baseboards, or the radiant floor. Then it loses its heating ability and lingers somewhere up above our heads. So we don't care really what's happening up above. You know, if it's cooler up above, who cares? And even we like when our heads are cooler and the rest and our feet are warmer. You know, we do like that. Okay, so hydronic system is ideal. The forced air pumps the air into the room and has to heat equally whatever the cubic feet of air we have there for us to feel comfortable. So it has to heat so much more volume of the air than the hydronic heat system. So therefore, the hydronic system will be more efficient than the forced air, given even the same efficiency of the appliances.
It just works.
Not to mention, exactly, it's a very simple truth and the exercise that one can do. If you blow on your hand, you feel a little bit cooler, right? So the air movement for the cooling part, it's very desirable, but in the heating mode, it's not. You want to move the air as little as possible or not at all. So that's why the radiators are heating the space with the simple convection that's not detectable to human skin. But the forced air, we simply are pumping air, we're moving the air because that's the way the system is designed. New forced air systems are very smart and they can run at the lowest speed possible for a long period of time. And they kind of, the new systems are good. They're good on our here.
They're imposters. They're just pretending to be hydronic systems.
Yes.
How opinionated we are about our heating systems. Okay, what temperature and pressure does a hot water system run at? My boiler barely gets up to 130 degrees and the radiators don't get that hot, which I feel means the burners stay on for longer. Should my boiler be getting hotter or is 130 degrees normal / expected?
I would say if you can heat your space with the lower water temperature in your radiators in your boiler, it's more beneficial for the system. So if your thermostat is set at 72 degrees and your boiler circulates the 120 degree water throughout the system and stays at that level, it's a lovely thing to have. You don't want your boiler to bring the temperature of water up to 180 and then shut down. There are controls nowadays that do exactly what we're talking about. They have outdoor sensor and they will limit the water temperature to certain degrees so it will never overshoot, because the system, if we can heat with the lower water temperature, then the systems and it's running more efficiently. Especially this is true with the modern high efficiency boilers and the water heaters. So if you can maintain the level of heat on your thermostat at your desired temperature with the lower water temperature, that's perfect. It's perfect. Nothing to worry about.
In fact, we talked about radiant floors earlier, and the temperature setting for radiant floor heat is usually 140.
Yes.
The design temperature.
Well, it's less, but it's even less. Yes.
Like at the max,
Right.
140.
Yes. Yes.
And that's just a more efficient way to do it.
Right.
Okay. If you switch from a steam to a new hot water boiler, can you still use the current pipes and radiators?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. There may be some adjustments, but if you have two pipe steam system, basically there's nothing that needs to be touched as far as your system is concerned. If you have a single pipe steam system, we may have to add another pipe to your radiator and make sure that we have some way of circulating the water through your radiator. Yes. And also in the past, they used to make single pipe steam system radiators that are specific for that particular system. Those radiators cannot be used with the hydronic system, with the hot water system. So at that point, we would have to change the radiators too. But with two pipe steam system, that's not an issue. It can be addressed, very simply.
And let's talk about an easy way to know if you have a 2-pipe steam system, right? So if you look at your radiator and you see that there's a little valve up toward the top and then toward the bottom, there's a trap like was in our conversion slide where I had a little image of if your radiator has a trap like this, chances are you're a good candidate for conversion. That's what you're looking for because
Right.
you have a pipe coming in and a pipe coming out. That's 2-pipe.
Right. As long as your radiator is connected with 2 pipes,
Mhm.
you're good to go.
All right. Interesting. I currently have a boiler and 2 furnaces in my home that gives controlled heating on each level. I always wondered about the safety of this. Is there a way to combine heating but keep the ability to control on each floor, sort of zone?
Mhm.
All right.
Maybe not with your existing equipment, but if you're saying, if the idea is to put hydronics on each floor and zone it, or is it to keep if we're asking if we can keep our ducted systems plus the hydronic system and combine them?
I think that's what she's asking. Yeah, to keep.
I think that he would like to keep the systems the way they are, right?
So yeah, she currently has a boiler and 2 furnaces that give controlled heating on each level, but she's
Mhm.
worried about the safety and, you know, maybe if there's a method to.
I don't think she should be concerned with the safety. It would seem to me like it's done properly for the proper control of the comfort. So if each area that services, you know, let's say boiler services one area, one furnace services another area, and the other furnace services another area, there is no issue with safety. I don't think there's an issue with safety. It's, in my opinion, that's pretty smart way of doing it. I think it would be good system. Yes.
Okay.
The only concern I would have is if they're all in one room somehow and they don't have enough combustion air.
That's the only thing.
Right?
Yes.
But that doesn't sound like the setup.
Okay. So Darlene has a large living room with a large radiator, but it's her coolest room. So she's wondering what she can do to the radiator to increase the heat, and or if there's some other trick to just generally increase the heat in the room. And also she was curious about if there's a radiator cover company that you guys would recommend that has reasonably priced radiator covers, which I knew someone was going to bring up.
So the question that I would have is location of the thermostat. I don't think that the thermostat is located in that particular room with the cooler radiator. So it's probably located, let's say the living room is the radiator in question, and the thermostat is located most probably in the dining room. In this case, there are 2 solutions. Move the thermostat to the cooler room, but yet at that point we'll be overheating all the other rooms because the thermostat will dictate to boiler, you know, that I want to, you know, satisfy this room and run until I'm warm enough. So it'll overheat the other radiators. However, with the other radiators, then you can just simply close the radiator valves on them partially to limit the flow to those radiators. So there is a way around it without, you know, repiping or anything. It's just, or maybe even leave the thermostat where it is, but close partially the radiator that's in that room. So that radiator will give you less heat and kind of in a way fool the thermostat to run boiler a bit longer.
That's so interesting, tricking it. That's so smart. Let's see. Okay, what is the best way to insulate ducts, especially those in walls that he doesn't have access to? I know this is a little outside of the realm too. I know there's some gray system, but yeah.
It's insulating the ducts on the outside, it's, you know, all inside, it's almost impossible when they're in the walls. However, there is a technology that will allow for sealing of the ducts. So if there are gaps in the ductwork and the air is escaping within the wall cavity, there is technology that's called AirSeal that will simply, how would you describe it?
it's this crazy material that NASA developed, like everything else, and it ultimately just like gloms on to any holes or crevices in the ductwork that are letting air out, and
Yeah.
it's up to 5/8 of an inch.
Yeah, it doesn't line the ductwork. It just seeks the gaps and kind of coagulates like, you know, like little
Mhm.
blood clot or something.
It's like science fiction, but it's really cool, and it really most people don't know that ductwork, like for conventional forced air, leaks like a sieve. Like what's the statistic, like 30%?
It leaks, especially the older ductwork. The new
Mhm.
ductwork, there are codes that require sealing, and you know it's a different ballgame. But the ductwork that was installed, you know, 20 years ago and more, it will leak like crazy. Yes,
Mhm.
tremendous losses.
So AeroSeal is something.
Yes,
that you
so
can
there
do.
is a technology that can seal those ducts from the inside.
Excellent. I didn't realize that was NASA. I think that's what I was thinking of too, but interesting. Let's see, with a basement combi heater / tankless water heater, do you recommend a second tankless water heater for an upstairs attic or bathroom?
No, not necessarily.
No, I think if you need more capacity, then add a storage tank, because it's going to be way less expensive and you're going to get the same effect.
Right.
If you have more than 2, 3 bathrooms in the house.
Unless you're renting it and you want to have a different source of, you know,
You want to bill somebody.
you
to
have
really-
bill someone, you know,
Yeah.
for that. Yes. No, there should be no need for it.
Okay. Okay. Someone's asking for a ballpark estimate. I'm not sure if you're able to do that right now, to replace house radiator pipes with PEX, P-E-X. I'm not sure I know what that
Yes.
is.
Yes, we were talking about it. Yes,
Mhm.
yes, we were talking about it. Ballpark. It's really hard
It's
to
tough.
ballpark.
I mean, I'm assuming a bungalow.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So I just did an estimate for somebody on piping removal and came in at around let's say $1,500.
But that's removal.
That's just the removal. And then the repiping, it's hard to say because we don't know the number of radiators. We don't
Right.
know the number of risers. But to get those pipes out of there, you're looking at about somewhere under 2,000 probably.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's really hard. But I would say you definitely should be under $10,000. Definitely. How much lower below that? You know, one would have to look at the radiators and particular situation.
And just jumping off of that, somebody thought that we weren't allowed to use PEX in Chicago. Is there some aspects of code that, that prohibit it?
Yes, PEX is prohibited for usage on domestic water. So on the water that we're bathing and drinking, you cannot use PEX. It's prohibited. However, for heating supplies, you can use PEX in Chicago.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, my home has radiators recessed in the walls. The positive is that they take up less space in my home. The negative is that they aren't as efficient at heating my rooms as the old-fashioned radiator in the basement and the room in the attic. What might be the problem? So I'm not sure what the recessed radiators in the wall look like exactly, but.
There is a kind that's called recessed. Those are very fine radiators. What would be the problem? First, I would ask the participant, do they heat totally? So do they heat the entire surface of radiator? Does it heat equally, or does the bottom heats better than the top? It could be simply that there's air logged in the top portion of the radiator, not allowing water to fill the entire radiator, and therefore not allowing for proper convection. That would be the first thing that I would think of. The second thing that I would think of, it would be, is there proper pumping arrangements that the hot water gets properly delivered to that particular radiator or radiators? Generally, the recessed radiators are wonderful. I like them for the space saving, and if sized properly, there should be no problem whatsoever with the heating of the space.
Mark, if she finds that they're not heating totally, that there may be air bubbles in there,
Yes.
How does she proceed?
There should be something that's called air vent. It's a silver little thing the size of a dime, closer to the top of the radiator. It requires either special radiator key that you can purchase at any hardware store for like 75 cents or something, or sometimes you can open it with the screwdriver if it has a proper slot. Don't try it if it doesn't have the proper slot. Go get the key. Then you open the little key and just put the cup underneath. There's like a little, what would you say? Spigot faucet, something that the water will come out from there eventually. Okay.
Mhm.
So something to catch that water. So because once you get the water out and once you get all the air out and the water starts squirting from this opening, you're done. Close it and everything should heat properly.
Great. Okay. What type of whole house humidifier is recommended for a space of around 1,500 square feet? And what is meant by a whole house humidifier? And is that a standard one or is it unique to AVH? So I guess she means you guys sort of have your own sort of custom one that you use and for customers, or do you have one you could recommend?
We use April Air products.
Yes.
And April Air has a couple of whole house humidifiers that we really like. One is it's called the 350, and it is a standalone. It's not super pretty. That's the downside to it, but it's a lot less expensive than the April Air 800 or 865, which is essentially a steam humidifier that has its own little box generator thing that goes into a closet, and it has to be, it has to have a water source and it has to have drainage, and it's a little bit more of an installation. It's not impossible, it doesn't require a lot of construction, but you need a place to tuck it that is convenient to where you want the humidity dispersed into the house. It can be purchased either applied to a forced air system, or it can be distributed via a grill into the main space of the house. So, and that, you're looking at one for about half the cost of the other. So the 350 versus the 800 or 865, and the 350 would take care of that square footage.
Yes.
You'd be fine. Yeah.
Right. All right. Okay. My mom is an old water heater that's got to be 20 years old, but the heating and cooling guy said it was okay. Should she just replace it? The old ones aren't as efficient as the new ones, right?
That is correct.
That's correct. It's a water heater tank
Yes.
type. So always preemptively replace your tank type water heaters because they're going to flood.
No?
Chances are they're going to leak, flood your basement. You're going to have a mess on your hands and no hot water. So when they get older, and we look at like 7 to 10 years as a lifespan on these things, when they get beyond that, you need to start thinking about a replacement.
Yes. Plus, there's the sediment that normally forms on the bottom, so that kind of prohibits from the proper heat transfer from the burners into the water. So that there are many things that can go wrong with the older water heater. Yes, they used to build them a little bit better than they do now, but
it lasted for 20 years.
Yes.
But probably start thinking about it.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, they keep coming in, so I'm just trying to. Is there an efficient heating and cooling mini split brand that you recommend?
We installed Daikin
Yes.
exclusively, actually, and love their products. Absolutely love their products. They do 80% of the HVAC equipment in the world. They're a huge producer of HVAC equipment.
And that's the only thing they do.
Yeah.
They're basically heating, cooling, and ventilation. That's all they do. They don't build trucks or the cars or anything like, for example, Mitsubishi does. That's their baby. They were the first ones that came out with the ductless split systems, and that's why we kind of hitch our wagon to their,
It's their inverter technology that everybody's using.
Yes.
All right. What are the possible reasons for a cold radiator in a hydronic system?
Air being logged into in the radiator, that's like the most common. The other problem, it could be something with the piping that, maybe house was remodeled or something and someone didn't provide for the proper purging of the air. Air is generally the culprit of the cold radiators. If the air is not being removed, then, or it could be also lack of circulation, but generally, even by gravity, most of the radiators would heat up over the period of time.
Right. Again, I'm not sure if you're able to do this on the spot, but can you provide a rough estimate of a mini split cost for an attic that's around 700 square feet?
If it's an open room, I usually think in terms of chunks of $5,000 when I think about mini splits.
Okay.
So just to get a really general ballpark, if you're looking at a single zone and you want heating and cooling, you're probably somewhere in that $4,000 to $5,000 range. If you've got multiple rooms, it gets a little bit more expensive, but you can think about one zone being that sort of chunk of change.
Let's see. Did that. An extension was added to the main bedroom, but no heat was added. What do you suggest? Not sure what an extension means exactly, but.
It just, yes, I would say, someone added another 4 feet. So sometimes you don't need anything, because if the extension was done properly, that wall, new extended wall, if it's well insulated, will lose less heat than the old wall was using. So, but obviously the participating person has a problem, so that's not the case. So we could put the larger radiator, extend the baseboard if there is a heating baseboard in there, or one could put also another radiator if necessary. Yes.
I know it's always difficult. This is the problem with these chats like this, is you can't ask something additional. Information.
Our business is a very visual business too, so seeing your house is really helpful.
I know, that's why I'm always like, can you give an estimate? So I have radiators in my home, and there are 2 floors. The radiators upstairs are low radiators. Sorry, it's a little bit chopped up here, the reading. Around 2 feet by 3 feet. The upstairs radiators don't seem to get heat to the rooms. Is there anything I can do besides getting larger radiators? So it's kind of related to the one before, I guess, a little bit. I think it's.
One would have to really take a good look at the piping arrangement and whether the radiators were sized properly to the space. So they're would have to come out there and take a look at the spaces, radiators, and see how everything was piped. It is possible to heat with the existing radiators, but we don't know. We need a little bit more of fact finding.
It also begs the question, are the radiators themselves actually getting hot?
Right.
So is it an air problem again?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I know we talked about noise already a bit during your presentation, but because it's such a popular one, my radiators hiss and I hear banging when the boiler's on. Is this normal? I know you said it, but again, people have been jumping in and out, so.
It's normal, yeah.
No, it's not normal. No, it's not normal.
It's not the way it's supposed to be.
No.
It happens a lot.
Yes, it happens a lot, but it's not normal. Yes. Well-designed system should not create anything. But with anything else, the systems get old. The pipes sag here and there. They create little areas that water can collect, and then passing steam can create the noises. So that's what's happening. The heating of the radiators, to a certain degree, because steam radiators have something that's called air vents. And the air vents should allow for pressing steam to push away the air through those vents. So sometimes the steam travels so fast that there is a little bit of a whistling noise. So that I would consider normal and maybe even desirable noise. If it's too bad, maybe we need to change just the vent. But that hissing noise up to steam rather properly. The banging, that's a little bit different issue. It shouldn't happen.
Okay. And that's something you could just need to go and check and figure out how to adjust things, right?
That would be, yes.
Yeah. Okay, one more question, so we can respect everybody's time here. let's see, if you're, just because this one seems like it could be a health and safety one, I want to make sure we get it. If the forced air heating system hasn't been turned on in 14 years, does the entire duct system need to be professionally cleaned before turning it back on?
14 years?
It's a long-
I probably would recommend this being examined and cleaned. Yes, yes. 14 years, yes.
And is that something you guys,
Run out the door.
now it's like, let's get everybody out of the house when you try. Is that a service that you would provide? Or is that
We don't do the duct cleaning, but we have subcontractors that we could recommend to do so, yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, we are at 7:30. We didn't get to everything. We got to a lot of questions. I'm really sorry to those we were not able to get to tonight. Some of them, though, I imagine have been sort of answered as we've gone through these as well. And I just wanted to mention too, if you are a member of the Chicago Bungalow Association, American Vintage Home actually has an offer for any full price, assessment or work that they're doing or installation. You get 5% off, so that's nice, especially if you're switching out all of that piping apparently. So, so yeah, consider that for sure. Let us know if you guys are looking for membership. But thank you guys so much. That was so informative. We really touched on so much stuff and made it really accessible. So thank you for being with us tonight. Obviously, there's a huge to learn about it.
It was a pleasure.
Great. All right. Well, thank you all. And thanks everybody for coming and joining us tonight too out there in cyber world. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Carla.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Thanks so much. It was great to meet you too. I drive past your business all the time. So.
Stop by.